I never thought I'd find myself back in the game, not after the mess Jeff left. But life has a funny way of surprising you. My name's Sarah, by the way. I'm 35, a journalist, and a single mom to my little trooper, Emily, who's just turned 7. Since the divorce, it's just been the two of us tackling the world one day at a time. Today was different, though. I had an interview scheduled with the governor, a real career highlight. As I was setting up in the State Building, a place buzzing more than a beehive, Michael, the governor's right-hand man, walked in. Older than me, maybe by a decade, with that salt and pepper charm that's all too rare, he asked, "Need a hand with that?" Nodding towards the mess of cables at my feet. "I've got it, thanks," I said without looking up. "These cables are less complicated than the politicians I deal with." He laughed, a deep, hearty sound that made me glance up. "Oh, I don't know about that. Politicians at least pretend to organize themselves," he said. "That they do," I replied, finally getting the cables to behave. "So you're the man making sure I don't mess up the governor's schedule?" I asked. "That's me, guilty as charged," Michael said, extending a hand. "Sarah," I said, shaking it. His grip was firm and confident. "Listen, after you wrap up here, how about coffee? I know a place nearby that doesn't burn their beans." I hesitated. It was just coffee, right? "Sure, why not? But just so we're clear, I'm not looking for anything serious. My focus is my work and my daughter." The interview went smoother than silk, and true to his word, Michael led me to a quaint little coffee shop tucked away from the usual hustle. It was nice, easy, and he was an excellent conversationalist. The hour slipped by like minutes. "So, Michael," I ventured, stirring my nearly finished latte, "any skeletons in your closet? Ex-wives? Angry cats?" "Just one ex-wife. We're on good terms, though. No cats, angry or otherwise. I do have a daughter, Claire. She's 17, headed off to college soon. My Emily's only 7, second grade, and already too smart for her own good," I said, smiling and feeling a pang of love at the mention of her name. We parted ways with a promise to do it again sometime. No expectations, no pressure, just two people enjoying each other's company. It was refreshing, honestly, not having to tiptoe around intentions and hidden meanings. 2 years zipped by since Michael and I started dating, and I'll be honest, they were some of the best years of my life. So when he popped the question, it wasn't a head-scratcher or anything. It felt right. Michael was pretty old school, wanted to do things right, so he planned a little meet and greet for our kids before we all jumped into the new family setup. Claire, his daughter, was coming home from college for the weekend, and he thought it was the perfect time for us all to get together. "Mom, do I have to clean my room just because Claire's coming over?" Emily groaned as she threw her toys into the toy chest rather haphazardly. "Yep, your room's got to look decent. We want to make a good impression, don't we?" I replied, folding her clothes and placing them neatly in the drawer. "But she's like super old, right? What if she thinks I'm a baby or something? Claire's 19, not 100, and she's not going to think you're a baby." "Trust me," I reassured her, chuckling as I straightened her bedspread. When Claire arrived, I could tell right away that the vibe was kind of off. She was polite, but there was a chilliness about her, like she could be anywhere else but here. "Hi, Claire. I'm so glad to finally meet you. Michael's told us a lot about you," I said, extending a hand. "Hi," Claire muttered, giving me a limp handshake before dropping her gaze to her phone. "Nice place," I said, glancing at Michael, hoping he'd break the ice a bit. He just smiled nervously and ushered everyone into the living room. "Girls, why don't you two get acquainted while I help Sarah with dinner?" Michael suggested a bit too cheerfully. Claire and Emily sat on the couch, the air thick with awkward silence. I headed to the kitchen with Michael, whispering, "Is she always like this?" "She's just shy around new people," Michael whispered back. "Give her some time. She'll warm up." The dinner itself was quiet. I made my best lasagna, hoping comfort food might loosen things up. We talked about mundane stuff. The weather, Claire's college, my job, but the tension was like a stubborn stain. "So, Claire, Emily's really excited about her spring project at school. Maybe you two could talk about it." "Emily's been learning about marine life." I tried, aiming for a light conversation. "That's nice," Claire responded, her attention never leaving her plate. "Yeah, I got to pick the dolphins because they're my favorite." Emily piped up, trying to catch Claire's interest. "Cool," was all Claire said, pushing her food around her plate. The evening wrapped up with an uneasy peace. Emily went to bed feeling confused, and I could tell she was disappointed. Claire said her goodbyes and retreated to the guest room, closing the door with a soft click that somehow sounded final. Truth be told, I didn't see much of Claire after that, which was somewhat of a relief. She stayed at college most of the time, and our paths barely crossed. It wasn't ideal, but it made things simpler in some ways. Michael and I tied the knot in a modest ceremony a few months later, just close friends and family, nothing fancy. We moved into his big house soon after. It was a fresh start, a new chapter. As I unpacked our boxes and set up our new life, I felt a cautious optimism. Maybe, just maybe, this could work out after all. Life seemed to hit a smooth stride after Michael and I tied the knot. I was neck deep in work, always on the move with interviews and meetings that sprang up without much warning. Michael, bless him, stepped up big time. He picked up Emily from school, whipped up dinners, and managed the household like a pro. Honestly, it was a massive load off my shoulders, especially seeing Emily warm up to him so well initially. But a couple of months into our marriage, I started to notice little changes in Emily that didn't sit right with me. She had always been this vibrant, chatty kid who'd run to me with arms wide open whenever I got home. Lately, though, she'd just mumble a hello and drag herself back to her room. At first, I chalked it up to school stress, or maybe just a phase. One evening, I decided to get to the bottom of it. I found her curled up on her bed, staring at her tablet. "Hey, Bug, everything okay at school?" I asked, sitting down beside her. "It's fine," she murmured without looking up. "You sure? You've been kind of quiet lately. You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" "Yeah, I know," she said in a small voice, still not meeting my eye. I let it go for the moment, not wanting to push her, but it nagged at me. This feeling that something was off. The real alarm bells rang a few weeks later. It was a Thursday night, and I was helping Emily get ready for bed when I saw it, a nasty bruise on her arm. "Emily, honey, what happened to your arm?" I asked gently, trying not to sound as panicked as I felt. "I fell on the playground," she replied quickly, too quickly. "That looks like it hurt. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I did." "No." "I forgot." She shrugged, pulling her sleeve down, but her answer didn't add up. The mom in me knew when my kid was fibbing. I kissed her good night, my mind racing with worry. Something about her tone, the way she wouldn't look at me, set off alarm bells in my head. I had a gut feeling that this wasn't just an accident. I thought maybe some kids at school were picking on her. The next morning, I made it my mission to get to the bottom of it. I dropped her off and went straight to speak with her teacher, Mrs. Jensen. "Mrs. Jensen, do you have a minute?" I asked as I caught her during a break. "Of course, Sarah. What's on your mind?" "It's about Emily. She's come home with a few bruises, and she seems different, quieter. Has she been having any trouble with other kids here? Maybe some bullying?" I should know about. Mrs. Jensen looked genuinely surprised. Bullying? Oh no, Emily's well-liked here. She plays with everyone, and I haven't seen or heard about any conflicts. Maybe she's just adjusting to the new changes at home. I nodded, though I wasn't fully convinced. Yeah, maybe. Just keep an eye out for me, will you? Of course. I'll let you know if I see anything. I left feeling a bit frustrated, still worried as hell about Emily. The teacher's words hadn't eased my mind one bit. As I drove to work, the worry gnawed at me. I knew my daughter, and I knew when something was up. This wasn't just about adjusting to a new home life or some minor scrapes from planing. That's when I got the idea of the smartwatch with a voice recorder. It felt a bit sneaky, sure, but I was desperate. Look what I got for you, I said, trying to keep my voice cheerful as I handed her the new watch after school. What's that? She asked, her eyes lighting up a little. It's a special watch. It can tell time, count your steps, and it even lets me send you little messages while I'm at work. Pretty cool, huh? I explained, wrapping it around her wrist. Really? You can send me messages. She looked down at it, fiddling with the buttons, a small smile creeping onto her face. Yep, anytime. And if you ever feel sad or scared, you can just press this button, I said, showing her the designated button, and it'll let me know you need me. That's awesome, Mom. Thanks. She hugged me, and for a moment, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The next few days, I tried not to think too much about the watch. I didn't want to jump at every beep on my phone, but every evening after Emily went to bed, I checked the recordings. It was mostly mundane stuff, lessons, kids laughing, the clatter of lunch trays. But then, one day at work, everything changed. I was in my office, headphones on, listening to the day's recordings. That's when I heard it. A man's voice, stern and cruel. You're such a fool, Emily, and a crybaby to boot, followed by the sound of a sharp slap and Emily's muffled cry. My heart stopped. That voice, it was Michael. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Emily's voice was shaky, tearful. Sorry doesn't cut it. You need to learn, or you'll never get anywhere. The voice continued, each word like a dagger in my heart. Shaken to my core, I packed up my things at work and told my boss I needed to take the rest of the day off. Something urgent had come up. As I drove home, my mind raced. I was furious, heartbroken, but I knew I had to be smart about this. Confronting Michael directly in a blaze of anger might not protect me in the long run. I needed a plan, something foolproof. I felt a grim determination settle over me. Michael had no idea what was coming. I'd play the part for now for Emily's sake, but soon enough he'd get what he deserved. No one messes with my kid. No one. When I got home, it was just Emily there. Her face lit up for a moment when she saw me, but it quickly faded back to that worried look that had been there too much lately. Hey, sweetie, I said softly, sitting down beside her on the couch. We need to talk about something important. Emily looked up at me, her eyes wide. Is everything okay, Mom? I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I know about what's been going on, Emily, about how Michael has been treating you when I'm not here. At first she tried to look confused, but then her face crumbled, and the tears started. Mom, I didn't want to tell you. He said he'd get really mad if I told anyone. He hits me sometimes when he's angry, or when I do something wrong. He told me not to say anything. The confirmation hit me like a truck. Even though I had heard it myself on the recordings, hearing it directly from Emily tore at my heart. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry, I said, pulling her into a tight hug. You won't have to deal with that ever again. I promise. You're safe now." I made a quick decision. "We're going to go stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a little while, okay? Just until we sort this out." Emily nodded, still sniffling. We packed a few things, and I drove her over to my parents. They were concerned but supportive when I explained the situation briefly. Leaving Emily in their loving care, I headed back home. My resolve hardened. Michael was going to pay for this. I got back just in time to see Michael pulling into the driveway. He walked in with that same smug smile, thinking everything was just as he'd left it. "Sarah, there you are. I was wondering where you'd gone off to," he said cheerfully. I didn't mince words. "Cut the act, Michael. I know what you've been doing to Emily." His smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of panic before he regained his composure. "What are you talking about, Sarah? Emily's a sensitive kid, you know that. She makes things up sometimes." "I'm not buying it, Michael. I've heard everything." I shot back, anger lacing my words. His laugh was cold and hollow. "You think you have something on me? You think anyone will believe you over me? I have connections, Sarah. I can make this very difficult for you." That's when I pulled out my phone. "Listen to this," I said, and played the recording of him yelling at Emily, the sound of him hitting her clear as day. The color drained from his face as he listened, his eyes wide with fear when he realized what this meant. "Sarah, please, I can make this right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "No, Michael, sorry doesn't cut it. Not this time." I was unmoved by his pleas. I called the police. "They're on their way." He fell to his knees, his earlier arrogance gone as he begged. "Please don't do this. I'll do anything." "It's too late for that," I said firmly, just as I heard the sirens approaching. The police arrived quickly, and I explained the situation. They listened to the recording and took Michael into custody. As they led him away, his eyes met mine, full of fear and realization that his actions had caught up with him. Emily would be safe now, and that was all that mattered. No one would hurt my daughter again. No one. The aftermath of Michael's arrest was a whirlwind. I knew if we were going to nail this down in court, I needed every piece of evidence and every ally I could muster. My lawyer, Lisa, was a godsend during this. We sat down in her office, papers strewn about, strategizing our next move. "Sarah, considering Michael's threats and his connections, it might be a good idea to bring this into the public eye. It could help curb some of the influence he thinks he has," Lisa suggested, tapping her pen against the notepad. I hesitated, the journalist in me wary of turning my personal life into a headline, but then the fighter in me won over. "Let's do it. I'll call Jenna at the morning show. If anyone can help get the word out, it's her." With that decided, I reached out to Jenna, an old colleague who hosted a popular women's show. She was shocked but jumped at the chance to help. We scheduled an interview, and I laid it all out on live TV. The abuse, the recordings, Michael's threats. It was liberating and terrifying all at once. Just when I thought I'd exhausted my options, my phone rang. It was Jeff, my ex-husband, whom I hadn't spoken to in more serious terms since our divorce. "Sarah, I just saw your interview. I can't believe what Emily's been through. How can I help?" Jeff's voice was earnest and concerned. "Thanks, Jeff. I didn't expect you to call," I admitted, surprised by his offer. "He's threatening our daughter, Sarah. I want to help any way I can. Just tell me what you need." We met up to talk, and it was strangely comforting to have him on my side. We discussed legal strategies and how he could support Emily through this ordeal. As if the day wasn't full enough, another call came. This time it was Claire, Michael's daughter from his previous marriage. Her voice trembled over the line. "Sarah, I heard what you did this morning. I have something to tell you. My father was the same with me when I was younger. I have some old recordings and emails I think could help your case." My heart sank for her, but I was also filled with fierce gratitude. "Claire, thank you. I'm so sorry you went through that, but your evidence could make all the difference." With Claire's and my own collected evidence, I felt a renewed strength. We were building a formidable case against Michael, one he wouldn't be able to dismiss or charm his way out of. The courthouse was abuzz as the final day of the trial dawned. I felt a mix of nerves and resolve as I walked through those imposing doors, knowing that today would likely decide the course of our future. Lissa Ever the Rock patted my shoulder reassuringly. "Ready for this, Sarah?" she asked as we settled into our seats. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, taking a deep breath to steady myself. The courtroom filled up quickly, the air thick with anticipation. Jeff had taken a seat next to me, his presence a comfort. Emily was safe at my parents', spared from the day's tension. The prosecutor, a tall man with a commanding presence, opened the proceedings with a clear, powerful voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring to a close a case of grave injustice against a minor at the hands of someone who should have been her protector. We have heard heartbreaking testimony and seen undeniable evidence of Mr. Thompson's actions. It is time for justice to speak." Michael's lawyer tried to paint him as a caring stepfather who had merely been strict. "Mr. Thompson has always wanted what's best for Emily. His methods might have been stern, but they were never abusive." I almost snorted at that. Stern? The recording spoke louder than his words ever could. Then it was Lissa's turn. She was magnificent. "Your Honor, being strict is setting a curfew, not leaving bruises. We've shown what really happened in that house. This isn't discipline. It's cruelty. We ask for a full conviction for Emily's safety and for justice." The room was silent as the judge nodded, jotting down notes. Then the moment came. Claire was called to the stand. She was visibly nervous, but determined as she recounted her own experiences. Her testimony echoed mine and added weight to the case against Michael. After closing arguments, the jury didn't take long. The foreman stood, his voice clear and steady. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Mr. Michael Thompson, guilty of all charges." The judge thanked the jury and turned to sentencing. "Given the severity of these crimes and the courage of the victims in coming forward, I am sentencing Mr. Thompson to the maximum allowable under the law. He is to have no contact with Emily or any other minors unsupervised for the duration of his sentence and subsequent parole." Michael's face was ashen as the bailiffs led him away. He glanced back at us once, but there was nothing left to say. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones thrust forward. I gave a brief statement, thanking the legal team and the community for their support, but mostly I thanked Claire and Emily for their bravery. The day we moved into our new house was a fresh start, the sunlight pouring into wide open spaces that promised new memories. Emily raced through each room, her laughter bouncing off the walls, filling the spaces with light and life. "Look, Mom, can I have this room?" "It's got the best view of the yard," Emily called from upstairs. "Sure thing, kiddo," I yelled back, smiling at her excitement. It felt good, really good, to see her like this again. As I unpacked a box in the kitchen, Jeff came in holding a toolbox. He had been a surprising pillar of support, even after everything that had gone down. "Need help setting up the shelves?" he asked, a teasing smile on his face. "Yeah, you know I'm hopeless with the drill," I replied, grateful not only for his help, but also for his presence. It made things feel normal and easier. As we worked together, fitting pieces into place just like old times, Jeff said, "You know, I'm really proud of you, Sarah." You've been incredible through all of this." Once we got the shelves up, Emily bounded into the kitchen, her face alight with a mix of mischief and excitement. "Mom, can we get a dog now? There's so much space outside, and I promise I'll take care of it." I laughed, the sound mingling with the warmth of the afternoon, sun streaming through the windows. "We'll see, Emily. Let's settle in first." Later that day, Claire came over. She had been visiting more often, each time staying a little longer, laughing a little louder. Today she brought a housewarming gift, a beautiful set of wind chimes. "These are lovely, Claire." "Thank you," I said as I took them from her, touched by her thoughtfulness. "I thought they'd sound nice out back with the breeze and all," Claire replied, looking more comfortable here than she ever had before. "Why don't you stay for dinner? I'm making spaghetti." "Nothing fancy," I offered, hoping she'd say yes. "Sure, I'd love to," Claire answered with a genuine smile. It was the first of many meals we would share. Dinner was a noisy, joyful affair, with Emily and Claire chatting about everything from school to movies. Jeff helped with the dishes afterward, and we found ourselves lingering over coffee, talking about mundane things that felt extraordinarily comforting. As the evening wound down, I stepped outside to hang the wind chimes. The soft tones mingled with the rustling leaves, creating a melody that felt like a benediction. Standing there, I felt a peace I hadn't known in a long time. Jeff, Claire, Emily, and I. We were different pieces from different puzzles, but here now we fit together perfectly. The future was still unwritten, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what it would bring.